Hello and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Fremont Unified Superintendent Kim Wallace, sitting in for KK Kaneshiro. Over the next few years, Fremont Unified will be transitioning from a junior high, grades 7 through 8 format to a middle school, grades 6 through 8 system. This conversion will assist with some of the district's overcrowding issues, as well as provide a better educational environment for our students and families. While construction timelines get most of the attention, there are also many instructional components to making the switch to middle schools. Here to explain are the Director of Secondary Education, Greg Bailey, Hopkins Junior High History teacher, Beth Perez, Mission Valley Elementary 6th grade teacher, Michael Rivera, and Walters Junior High School Principal, Brian Weems, soon to be Walters Middle School Principal, Brian Weems. So let's just talk real quick about what that conversion timeline looks like. So the bond passed in 2014, and it was, Measure E was partially to convert the middle schools into, or the junior highs into middle schools. So tell us about, how does that timeline look? How will it unfold?
In 2019-2020, Horner and Walters will convert to middle school. In 2021 and 2022, we will have Thornton and Centerville convert to middle school. And then the last school converting will be Hopkins in the 2022-2023 school year.
So it'll take a little bit of a long
Yes.
runway to get all of those schools converted.
Yes, it will.
Okay, so we've got Walters and Horner on tap first, and so let's focus on how that transition is going to go, and so we'll talk about the instructional components. So why would we change to a middle school system? What's the difference really between middle school and junior high instructionally from your point of view?
Well, Fremont is one of the few districts in the state that even has 7th and 8th grade only. I think it's something like 64% of all the schools that teach these grade levels are 6, 7, 8 true middle schools. And so there's some benefits to that. Having students for 3 years in a row as opposed to just 2 will provide or allow us to get to know families better. Mm-hmm. It will probably improve parental involvement. And there's something else about the 6th and 7th grade teachers being able to talk to each other about what the kids know that's going to be really beneficial as well. So we're just looking forward to, I've been teaching junior high school for 21 years, and we're looking forward to having those kids for a more substantial amount of time, just so we can build those relationships.
Those are a number of benefits. Anything else?
Well, to interject along with that, as a 6th grade teacher, a lot of times we've always been on our own island as an elementary school teacher because primarily a lot of the instructional materials and the curriculum goes kindergarten through 5th. With the basic run out of the Common Core standards, as well as the NGSS standards, they have banded 6 through 8 together.
Right.
And so it seems like a more natural flow to have 6 through 8 at one school site rather than have one grade level at a different site.
Whenever you have an adoption to different curriculum, it's always 6, 7, 8 in that cluster, and then the K to 5, and then kind of goes to the high school.
What about like socially, emotionally, culturally? How is that something that might be a benefit for students as well?
I think socially, 6 will be able to transition a little bit better into a 7, 8 situation where both parents and students and faculty, staff all around are together and collaborating on what could be the most easy transition for 6th grade going into 7. It's pretty abrupt right now because it's a completely different school.
Right.
I think also, for me personally, having taught junior high, the sixth graders and the 8th graders are not that different. I know the 7th and the 8th graders are not that different versus a kindergartner and a 6th grader. Those are vast differences, and I think by having more teachers at the middle schools, you're going to be able to offer more programs for these kids. They're just going to be exposed to so many different kids, and there's a lot of things that are being put in place to make sure this transition goes very smoothly for them.
Great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what are the challenges that we're facing, because this is a big change for Fremont Unified. We've been junior high for our whole existence. What are some of the fears or the worries or the questions that you hear floating out there about what we're doing with this middle school transition?
How will their little babies survive? These are their precious kids. It's a transition no matter what grade you do it in, though. I think I see it. We just had 6th grade parent night a couple weeks ago, and it's the same questions, only a year later. How are they going to do this? How are they going to have that many teachers? You know, how are they going to get their lunch? All these different things that come with having more kids, more teachers. It's just a delayed reaction 1 year. This is just moving it up a year. It's going to be happening in 6th grade instead of 7th. And so I think the fear is there, but once they meet the teachers and see the people that they're going to be working with, and especially 6th grade, these are the teachers that have been teaching these kids for so long. I think once that initial shock of, oh, my child is in a school with this many kids, once that gets past, it's going to be fine.
And Mr. Rivera was on our middle school instructional task force along with Ms. Perez and Mr. Weems. And so we talked a lot about these issues together. So let's talk about some of the teacher concerns and questions, because you weren't always fully on board, go middle school, I want to be a 6th grade teacher at the middle school. So tell us about what your thoughts are and what you've heard from your colleagues.
Right, so definitely there was some concern as a 6th grade teacher feeling kind of lost in the system, that we would get kind of moved and forgotten about in these big new middle schools. And the more that we've discussed with principals as well as staff at middle schools, the more that kind of allayed a lot of our fears that we're not going to become this lost entity, but we're going to become a valuable part of an existing organization and really be able to bring our know-how of 6th grade to a different school site and learn a lot from our peers that we don't usually get to interact with.
And they'll learn so much from you, right?
Right.
We want them. We want the 6th grade at to come to
So
our schools.
talk about the administrative piece. So you've heard, you know, some of the fears about parents and about teachers, and so what are you doing as director of secondary education, as principal, to help parents and teachers and anybody really, students who are involved in this move? What kind of things can you do to help ease some of those concerns?
I think one of the things we could do as a whole district is to reassure the parents. We too have the best interests of their lovely children to be successful on our campuses, whatever campus that is. Working with the site admin to make sure that they are welcoming the new families to them. It is a change in our city, in our district, and we need to be aware that sometimes change is difficult for people. So just reassuring with them that we also have their child's best interest when every decision we make on that campus. One of the challenges we're facing is how much do we communicate, how often do we communicate, but we want to make sure that parents do get the necessary information that's needed to make sure that they should feel very good of going to our middle schools. They're getting remodeled. It's a lot of it's a new campuses in many ways. They're going to be exposed to a lot of exciting new learning, extracurricular activities. So we are very excited.
I think again, we just did 6th grade parent night as well, and I did a quick question. You know, how many? Raise your hand if you're the first one. The 6th grade student that will be 7th grade next year. That's your oldest. 80% of them raise their hand.
Oh, wow.
Because parents that have gone through this, they have gone through it, and they are not necessarily awaiting a 6th grade parent night because they've already gone through it 2 times. But again, what Ms. Perez said, it's just a year earlier. And it's a little change, but as far as administration, making sure communication is key, making sure you have that open line in many different ways, and then, of course, making sure that people are ready, not just the parents and the students, but making sure that the teachers are ready, not just 6th grade teachers, but all the 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade teachers that make up, which will be middle school.
So I know that Mr. Rivera, you went to junior high school in Fremont. Mr. Bailey, you went to junior high school in Fremont. Also,
Cupertino.
Fremont.
No.
Okay.
I went to middle school in Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, so we have two experts on going to junior high in Fremont. Can you remember way back when in junior high what it was like to be a junior high school student? And if you could give advice to your junior high self, what would it be?
I remember I really struggled with having 6 different teachers. And if you look at our current middle school model, I think we're going to only have maybe 3 or 4 teachers. I think that's a good transition for students as they get ready for 7th and 8th grade when they do have 6 different teachers with 6 different expectations. So it was just learning those organizational skills. So hopefully in 6th grade they will really start to get in those habit of organizational skills, because you're going to have multiple teachers that you're going to be dealing with.
And I totally agree with that. Was one of my fears as well. And then the other one was being in elementary school and you're the 6th grade and you're kind of the role model and the leaders, and then you go to middle school and you go to more of the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. And I think the big thing of advice I would give to my 7th grade self is to get more involved, look at the different clubs and organizations that are available in 7th grade, or in this case going to be available in 6th grade, and really dive into them, because it's those experiences that make that school a home for you.
Great. Those are great pieces of advice. That was off script, so you good answers for coming up with those on the fly.
And I would also just say, don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out and remember that if you're afraid, you're probably not the only one. Everyone else is in that same situation with you. They may look like they're not afraid, but they probably still have those same fears that you have.
So Mr. Bailey talked a little bit about the number of teachers and what the caseloads look like for teachers and students. And so the junior high model has been traditionally, you have 6 or 7 different teachers throughout the day, and the 6th graders going and will have what we call the core model. So they'll have the same teacher for English and social studies, and the same teacher for math and science, and then they'll have an electives wheel, which we can talk about a little bit, and a PE class. So it brings it down from that 6 or 7 down to 4 or 5 at the most. So let's talk about the electives wheel and that core model, and tell me what you think are the benefits to that model, because that's the one we recommended to the board recently.
I would say, as a 6th grade teacher, I know that when I make the move to middle school, it would make it a lot easier for myself as a 6th grade teacher, and I think for the kids as well, to have that continuity of a core model where groups of children, groups of students are with similar teachers for a band of subjects, 2 different subjects, and it gives kind of like having that homeroom feeling, but it's also starting to transition them into what school is going to be like as they get older, where that isn't going to be in existence anymore. So I think it really does have a good benefit to easing them into what school will be like in 7th and 8th grade.
And then the wheel is kind of what you talked about when you said if you had to give advice to anybody.
And tell a little bit what the wheel is,
The
because
wheel
most
would
people
be,
probably don't know.
and what those classes are not are determined. We don't have those determined yet. But a wheel would expose a kid to a different elective pretty much every quarter. It could be art, it could be music, it could be drama, it could be, computers. It could be so many different things, and it would they would change that elective every quarter, so that they would get to try out a variety, so that they could then figure out what do they really like, and they can make a really informed decision by the time they get in 7th and 8th grade about what path they want to go on. And that could include music, that could include chorus or band, or lots of different options for them.
I think another positive is it really allows the 6th grade teacher to teach the elective that they're really passionate about. And if that turns out to be something that they don't want to teach in the future, they have the freedom to change it.
So we have talked a lot about middle school, but this will also make some changes to our elementary schools. And like Mr. Rivera was saying, no longer will the 6th graders be on top, it'll be now the 5th graders. Is there anything that you think would be something that we should share with our elementary schools? Because it's a transition for them as well.
I would say one of the real benefits of this is, as we know, we're very overcrowded in Fremont. We have a lot of students that can attend their home school, in many cases not even their home attendance area.
Right.
What this is going to do is it's going to create students to return back to their home school, which is very valuable for us for a variety of reasons. We have students closer to home, we have transportation, I mean, there's a bunch of benefits with that. But at the same time, I think as an elementary school, they need to know that we value what they've taught their sixth grade teachers, because they're going to come with a wealth of knowledge for our middle schools, and we're really going to rely on the expertise of those sixth grade teachers and the expertise that they have in that field.
Great. And one of the big questions that I kept getting, and we as a middle school instructional task force got, was what happens to sixth grade camp? And the answer is?
The answer is, well, the answer I fought for, because I'm very passionate about science camp in the sixth grade, is it's really going to be a site-based decision.
Yes.
And
As it is now.
Right.
correct.
Yes.
So it'll be up to the sites to decide when the time comes, is this something that's feasible for their particular middle school site?
Great.
And then can some of us seventh grade teachers join in who've never had the opportunity to go before? That would be fun.
Yes. So parents can find out more information from our district website. They can find out information by talking with principals and teachers, and we will be sharing more and more information as we get closer to that opening date at Walters Middle School and Horner Middle School. Thank you for joining us on Community Conversations. Thank you to our guests who have a wealth of knowledge and brought life to something that's coming to us very soon. Good night.